Welcome to What Happens Next, and I'm really pleased to have Tim Levey here today to talk about his journey through business and through life, and what he's finding and learning through his own What Happens Next period. So, Tim, thank you so much for joining us on What Happens Next.
Well, thank you for inviting me. You never think that you've got anything useful to say, but I guess we had a chat and you decided that I had, so you're the judge.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I'm excited to share your insights today. So it'll be an interesting conversation, I'm sure. Before we start, tell our audience a little bit about you.
I'm Tim Levey. For the last 20 years, I've been a partner with Creston Reeves, which is a top 25 accounting firm based in London, Kent, and the Southeast. I joined them as a graduate from university back in 1981 in the teeth of a recession. Before that, when I was at school, I thought I might be a lawyer, solicitor.
Yeah,
applied to 5 universities to study law and got rejected by all 5. So that was that career. Ended pretty swiftly. I did a general social science degree at university, and I had an offer from Midland Bank to be a trainee bank manager. But teeth of a recession, they canned half of the intake, and I was in the half that got canned. So that was a second career gone. So I refer to myself as an accidental accountant. And a number of people have always said to me as they've come across me, Tim, you're not like other accountants. And I say, that's good.
Well, good. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you look at what makes a certain profession and somebody, and I think actually like even if we've fallen into it, I think a desire to help in any profession is the start of 10, isn't it? It's like, if you want to help people and sort of guide them through. What's fascinating for me, Tim, is just your career has been with one organisation, really.
Well, yes, it has really. I did have I call it the 8-year holiday.
Okay.
Where I actually left them and I went off to KPMG, who were kind enough to open up in my city of Canterbury, and it was rude not to go. So I did 5 years with them, and then 3 years as a finance director in commerce, down in Kent as well, before my green blood started pumping. And
what made you go back?
I went back. So I said I'd never go back. I'd found when I was trying to get away from the care company, because it was venture capital. Don't get me started on venture capital and what they do when things go slightly wrong. So I was looking for an exit route. I'd found a job with one of my old Reeves and Aylen clients, popped in to see my old partner at Reeves and Aylen, as it still was then, and said, do you think this is for me? And he looked at it and said, no, you'd be bored out of your mind. We need bright lads like you back here.
Okay.
And he eased the way through. When I got back, and there was a new young managing partner, quite liked him. He was my generation, quite liked where the firm was going. I thought, do you know what? I think the experience I've had, certainly the last 3 years out in commerce, gave me a bit of a different perspective from the career accountants who'd been there, for the 8 years that I've been around. So I kind of jumped around the glass ceiling, really.
Yeah.
And people stood up and took notice, because I was, coming at from a different direction from they were.
Yeah, because you had that fresh perspective, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
No, I learned more in those 3 years sitting on the tough side of the desk than I did in the 13 years before that, being an accountant.
But this is the interesting thing. You know what? Funny enough, I've put something on LinkedIn today. I never know what to write on LinkedIn. So my Thursday is my travel day, where I just share something about where I've been in the world. And I normally try and link it to some sort of business lesson that I've learned over the years. And a couple of years ago, I went to Paris. instead of turning around and going, oh, we'll get on the metro and head to the Eiffel Tower or to, you know, to Louvre, we just rented, you can get like an Uber bike and just cycle around Paris now, and it's really easy. But what we've found is just that fresh way of looking at Paris, traveling through Paris, just gives you a completely different perspective on the city. And I suppose you could argue that about careers, couldn't you? Because you could turn around and go, if you're sitting in that seat for too long, you're in a position where you don't look at it from other angles. What do you think?
That's exactly right. Well, I'm impressed that you survived driving around Paris on an Uber bike, because I've been there and they're nutters.
I've got to be honest. So they've got recently in Paris, they've got these really great cycle lanes where you're not involved in the traffic. And what we used to do is go down the cycle lane, get to a roundabout, and decide we were pedestrians again, and just sort of step off our bikes and poodle across. So we never cycled on a Parisian roundabout. We just wouldn't do that. And I know that you're in a sort of your next chapter of your life. Tell me about how that transition's been and what you've learned.
Well, so yes, I'm in the middle of the transition at the moment. I retired in inverted commas at the end of May. I'd done a 3-year wind down before that. I was kind to the people I worked with in that I handed stuff over early. So there were no last minute stuff. And that really worked well in that since I've retired, I really haven't been bothered too much by clients or staff actually as well. So the handout went really well. But I did decide really early on that even though there were people saying to me, oh, you know, come and be a non-exec director here, and you might need to do that. I was really conscious that after 43 years, I needed a firewall, I needed a break, just to not jump straight into something else.
Yeah.
And I suppose I was lucky that, you know, I'd tucked enough savings and stuff away that I didn't actually need to do. I don't need to work again. I can only just do it for the fun of it. So that's where I'm at the moment. I'm in the sort of definite 7 months detox period, I called it. And you know, not in a rush to get to do anything in 2025 either. Although there are a couple of things which are floating around, which I'll pull up the stone and see what's underneath a bit later on. But it's really done me good. Just not sitting, not putting yourself
under too much pressure, right?
Not sitting on webinars too long, and they're not just doing things that were backed up in my head, which I needed to get out of the way.
And what did that include? Because you wrote a book recently as well, didn't you? Was that part of the?
Yeah, that's part of it. It shouldn't have been part of the detox period, but it was. I mean, I've been working on the novel for 7 years, so it's a bit of a slow grind. But that, came out last December, and thinking about how I market that and keep the sales going. Before book 2 and book 3 come along, has kept me amused and kept my brain going. Writing does keeps the creative side flowing.
I agree. I think you're right on that. And I suppose, like, as you put it, you pick up your stone and go, is this worth exploring? And what is it about in this detox period? What is it about stuff that you're considering or ignoring or choosing not to do? What are the factors that you go, that's the thing I'm going to do or not?
So at the back of my head, as I went up the organisation ladder, I found I was priced out of doing some of the stuff I really enjoyed doing.
Right.
That was a big factor, and I did find ways around it. I set up a business group for 10, 12 clients to come in and see if they couldn't solve their own problems, rather than me having 10, 12 visits to different people and then think, oh, actually that bloke over there knows the answer to that. And that then meant I could split my time sort of 10, 12 ways, rather than have to charge one person what I thought was quite a high rate for me, sitting there doing a lot of listening to them and coming up with some pearls of wisdom at the end. So I'm now that I'm free of charge out rates and timesheets and things, it will be doing things that I got a bit frustrated that I couldn't really commercially do it, in the latter years.
So the commercial handcuffs are off, and you're just saying, I'm going to do stuff I really enjoy. And what is that? What's the core of that for you?
Well, the core is, I loved working with the growing companies. And helping them and seeing the pressure that they're under, not just to grow, but sometimes just to keep ticking over. And I could always see the benefit of an outside view of someone coming in and saying, for goodness sake, what are you doing? And I think now that I don't come in as an accountant stroke tax advisor, with that, it's going to be much easier for me to be honest with people and help them and say things that I probably didn't feel I could say before.
Yeah, I get that. Because there's a expectation, if you're in its box, to turn around and go, stay in that box. Whereas actually you are turning around and going, you may want to, Mr. Business Owner, look at it from this perspective, but is it my job to say? So it's an interesting one, that one. But one of the interesting things that you said, Tim, was that the 3-year sort of wind down period and getting ready for that. What we see quite a lot of is business owners not having that wind down period and finding themselves in a position where they are ready to do whatever's next in their life, but actually haven't put all the component parts in place. And we think that's a mistake. I think the longer you've got, it's really interesting. We interviewed somebody for What Happens Next a few weeks ago, and they said they were talking about the 60 payday method. So 5 years before, think about sort of what's next in your life. But what do you think that other common, apart from giving it a bit more time, what do you think the other common mistakes are, particularly for business owners when they're thinking about what happens next?
Well, the silliest mistake is just not thinking about it in the first place.
Yeah,
it's just carrying on blindly, thinking, "Oh, this will carry on forever," and then suddenly it doesn't carry on forever, and you're stuck. So I think I was smart that I'd seen other people make that mistake. I thought, I'm not going to get caught out like that.
What do you reckon? What do you reckon the reason for that is?
Some of them just too busy doing the do.
Yeah.
Some of them get caught up in their own ego.
Yeah.
I'm sad to say. This will never happen to me. I can carry on forever.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't happen. I met a number of business owners. So the other basic mistake I found was people who just look at the numbers. I'm going to work out what I need to sell the company for. And they don't think about the emotional side of what will happen to them after they've signed the document and they're sitting there on their own. I can remember many years ago, a guy who's still a good friend of mine, driving him down to the solicitor's office where he was going to sign over his company to a management buyout team. And he said, Tim, I've just thought, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. Yeah. Yikes.
Yeah. And
that led me then down a different road for anyone else who was, you know, thinking about selling. Hey, what are you going to do the day after? Let's think about the emotional side, not just the numbers, because otherwise you'll be sitting there pretty unhappy, not knowing what to do.
So I think I mean, that's why What Happens Next exists, because we need to be talking about the fact that this transition, even if you've got that number, that financial independence piece, that transition is still a difficult one. And thinking about what we're going to do about it is something that we need to have better and more nuanced conversations about.
Absolutely.
Because I think the assumption is, if I've got enough money, you're going to be all right. When the reality, and I've seen it and you've seen it, the reality is actually it's a bit of a harder journey than that.
Yeah. I mean, I did see a number of people, I don't know what it was, but after I'd been a partner for 20 years, I kind of had enough. There are a number of business owners, and it was either 20 years or 30 years, you know, leading the organization for 20 or 30 years. Those two milestones seemed to be big ones. And I could, you know, say to people, you've been running these 20 years now, how do you feel? And they just shake their head and say, I'm ready to get out. So they're okay, because they just know they want to do something else. They might not know what it is, but at least they're not going to be waking up the next morning pining for their old job back, because, you know, so long as they remember how end of the line of it they were.
Yeah, I get that. I suppose the big one for me is that identity piece, because the phrase that keeps on coming to my mind, and I've had conversations with clients about this over the years, is what am I if I'm not that? So what am I if I'm not that business owner or accountant partner or financial planner, or what am I if I'm not that? How did you navigate that in your own mind, and talk to me about the experiences you've had with the clients about how they've navigated it, either good or bad?
Well, I guess, to be fair, I'm still navigating it.
Yeah.
So I had got as far. I had quite a detailed plan for what I was going to do in retirement, and I think we both know Hillary, don't we?
We do.
So I knew Hillary did her next step retreats thing, and I contacted her and said, I think I don't need to come to see you for 3 days, 5 days, or whatever. I've got a pretty good idea. Wouldn't mind sitting down with you for a day just to tell you what the plan is, and you can pull it to pieces if you like. That'd be great. And the one critical thing she said, which, to be honest, I'm still getting my head around, is she understood that my purpose was, you talked about guiding earlier. Guiding was very much in my psyche. Guiding people to a brighter future was kind of my unwritten purpose for a long time. And she said, I think in retirement, you're going to need a new purpose. And that really gave me a what moment. I kind of thought I could carry on with that purpose, just find different ways of doing it. But I think she's got experience of seeing that, it doesn't always work. You actually need to go back to square one sometimes and have a new purpose for the new chapter that you're going through. So I think guiding you to a brighter future will still work for me, because there's coaching and mentoring charities that I'm aware of where I can still do that to some extent. Part of me thinks maybe just for the moment I just need to have a good time and do some traveling and get some jobs out of my heads that were burning away in me. I need to get round to doing this. I just haven't got the time.
But you make a really important point, Tim, because actually all the planning in the world is, and I'm an advocate of doing that. And I think planning, as you said, emotionally and financially is really important. But plans do change, right? Plans, it's, I always look at that Mike Tyson quote where, plans are great until you get hit in the face. And it's that element of navigating the way, the broad ambition is still there, but you're still working it as you go along, right?
Yeah, I think my plans have stood up to the rigor of what was going on, except for month one.
Okay, what was different about month one?
I tried to do too much in month one.
Right.
I was thinking, right, okay, end of May, month one's critical. I really need to have a lot of things
I really need to hit the ground running.
Yeah, hit the ground running so that I'm not pining away for what I did before. Busy.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a mistake. I really should have paced myself a bit better. So I'm pacing myself a lot better now.
Yeah, I like that.
And stretching things out. And I wrote out a calendar for the 7 months, and it was on one piece of paper, but you could just look at it in one glance and see if you were trying to do too much in a month.
I really like that idea, and I think the element of turning around and going, I need to keep my days full, actually probably is counterproductive in the longer term, isn't it? So having that calendar and turning around and going, how do we spread it out a bit, is a really good tip. Now, we've seen business owners make the what happens next retirement transition really well, but I've also seen a lot of business owners not do it so well, and I'm sure you have too. What do you reckon they get wrong? Well, how do business owners better plan for that retirement, what happens next transition in their lives?
They've just got to start thinking about it earlier.
Yeah.
I saw too many who an offer comes in for the company, then you're on the roller coaster before you realize it. You don't have time to do any thinking outside. How do I keep this business operating at its current level and deal with the solicitors and the accountants and all the other things going on?
Yeah.
If you haven't got some kind of a plan in place before that offer comes in, then you're facing a bit of a losing battle.
Yeah. And what's the right balance in terms of, because that due diligence sale process is quite time intensive.
It's full on. I've never seen anyone who hasn't come out and said, oh, goodness, if I realised what it was like, I'd done something different.
Yeah, interesting. So how do you get the balance right between continuing to run, grow, build the business, and go through the process of sale? It must be quite intense.
Yeah, people do it. Just choose up your evening, your weekend, all your spare time. Probably your family suffers, all your hobbies suffer.
Yeah,
because it's relentless.
Yeah,
and people just have to get it done.
Talk to me a little bit about preparing for that point. So that offer comes in, you go out to market, the offer comes in. And it's really interesting. I had a conversation with a client earlier in the week who runs a dental practice, and they're talking about their 5-year plan to sell the practice. And again, not my space, we're talking about their personal financial plan. But I said it might be sensible to take a look at your numbers and make sure that you've got management accounts, particularly on the approach to sale. And it was interesting because this particular lady is a brilliant dentist, delivers a really good quality service to her clients, wasn't particularly on top of her business numbers. And again, that's not unusual that somebody's really good at what they do, but maybe in other areas that haven't learned the business skills to get the numbers up to play. What are the steps that somebody needs to take so that when that tap on the shoulder comes and people go, you know what, we'd like to make you an offer, you're ready?
So I think we had a really long checklist of all the things, and it wasn't just getting the numbers right as well. It was, have you got contracts of employment for everyone? When was the last time you looked at your contract of employment just to make sure it's legal? So lots of more detailed things like that. I mean, what business sales tend to do now is they've got a data room, and everything goes up in the data room. I mean, the smart businesses have already planned the stuff that they're going to put straight in the data room as soon as the letter comes in, and think about, well, what are the things that they're going to ask me about? Get all the legal agreements all in one place. It's not just the numbers; it's the things like this which are potentially, the deal breakers for the buyer.
Yeah.
And looking at your PI insurance, can we manage these PI claims so that there's less to talk about to someone who's coming along? Well, what about the lease? Do we need to sort out some of the leases and get these done rather than just, that's come to the end of the lease and we're on a 6-month license? Is that going to suit a new purchaser, or is that going to cause them a few problems if they want to carry on? So there's lots of things like that. Really good idea to think about what a buyer might be looking for and what's going to be important to them, and get all those things straightened out nice and early.
I'd imagine your accountant will have a potential checklist. If you're running a business, your accountant should have a potential checklist of stuff that should be in that data room, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Really interesting. So we talked a little bit about books, and I need to find out a little bit about what your first book was about. But what I'm really curious about is, as you change the amount of time you spend on different things, what you get out of it. So help me understand firstly a bit about the book, and then talk to me a bit about what gap it's filling in your life.
Okay, so I need to actually, my first book was published 20 years ago.
Okay.
So that was under my own name, and it was called Profit Improvement in a Week. So there was a series of in a week books, and Hodder Stoughton were actually the second publisher I approached naively, and they said, "Oh yes, this looks like a good idea. Let's go with this," which kind of caught me off guard, because I thought I was going to have loads of rejections before I got anything. So I did a sort of non-fiction book like 20 years ago, and that ticked the ambition I'd like to be published at some point in my life, which I'd set in my 30s somewhere. So having done, oh great, what am I going to do now? I always had a desire that when I retired, I was going to write a crappy novel, just a novel that I could look and say, that's mine, I did that. And then, life gets in the way and plans turn upside down. And so it was 7 years ago that my daughter actually popped an idea in my head, and I thought, actually, that might be the crappy novel. Why don't I start now and just do it in evenings and weekends and things?
Yeah.
So it's been really good while I've been, pretty much at the top of the firm ladder for those 7 years. It was good to have something totally different to come out of it and get into a flow in something completely different.
Yeah.
Just as a real break for it. So it's really useful for that. And as I got further and further into it, I decided that I didn't just want it to be a crappy novel. If I'm doing it, I might as well make it a really good one, and go to the effort of finding a good professional editor and having it properly proofread and things, so that it actually, people will leave nice reviews for it on Amazon, which actually they've been doing for the last year or so.
What's the book about? Tell me about the book.
It's a hero's journey. Yeah. So that's the thing that got me started. We were driving home one Christmas. A Star Wars film's coming out over the break, and my daughter says, of course, Harry Potter and Star Wars have got the same basic plot line.
Yeah, it's Joseph Campbell's Circle, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, you know that. I know about it now because I've researched it when she, popped that out at me, and I thought, okay, so there's only a few ways that you can write a book, and there's all these things that have been under my radar. I'm going to write Hero's Journey, and I did it because I'm love music. I love listening to music. I love creating music. I'm a terrible amateur songwriter and performer. I thought, why don't I do about something I know and do it in the music industry? Because I don't think there's been a real hero's journey in the music industry.
Interesting.
So I ticked all the boxes about a young lad whose parents have been killed in a car crash in the prologue, and ends up being very shy, and he's on the spectrum, and all those kinds of things, and how he then navigates through and finds his journey through, just following the hero's journey, map that I found on the internet. Well, why not use that?
Yeah, and as you say, when you start looking at the hero's journey, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you can then turn around and go, I've seen that in virtually every film.
Absolutely, absolutely. Said I've been done all these years. Right, okay, I'm going to do that now.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So tell me a little bit about the detox period. So how long for you in your head is that lasting, and then what's the difference between the detox period and then the proper stage of what happens next for you?
So the idea of the detox period came when I was at KPMG, and there was a senior manager in one of the offices who was made redundant, and he popped in after a couple of months, and we said, well, what are you doing? Are you looking for another job? And he said, no, not a chance. I've been burnt out from the last few years that I've been here. I needed a detox period. And all he'd done was decorate his house, because he said this desperately needed doing. So that thought just stuck in my head. And as I got closer and closer, I don't want to jump straight into something else. I've got to have this detox period. I've got some traveling that I need to do. I did have, I hadn't done any decorating around the house for 20 years because I just didn't have the time or the inclination. So 1 year, and it's tough getting people to come to quote these days. So I thought, I know if it's going to be a nice summer, I'm going to do the outside of the house. I'm going to do the front door, and just do something that I haven't done for 20 years. Yeah. Which actually was eating away at the back of my head. Every time I looked at the front door, I thought this front door was a state. Look at it flaking off. I wish I had some time to do something about it.
And then after the detox period, what does that look like? Does that look like a period of doing something quite intensely again, and then another detox period, or is it a bit more of a combination for you?
I think it's definitely not going to be doing anything intense.
Yeah.
So I think I'm of an age. So I'm mid-60s. So I'm at a time where in my head, I need to be slowing down anyway.
Yeah.
So, if I'm doing non-exec stuff, it's not going to be full time at all.
Yeah.
Because I need some of this. I need time to be, writing the books and then keeping the stuff under control and doing the traveling that also I put to one side because it didn't feel I could take more than a week, 10 days off at a time because things are ticking away in the background, and actually I need to be there. Yeah. So, I had a very frustrated wife saying, why can't we go away for a fortnight? Oh, I can't go away for a fortnight. I've got business groups to run, and I've got partners meetings to be at and
there's always
for.
Something,
just doesn't there was just never a gap. So it's definitely going to be at a more civilized pace than it was before.
Yeah, 100%. I completely get that. And when you're thinking about that, so one thing we've learned from that period is, look, pace ourselves, go at a pace that's going to work, and we're going to enjoy it more. What else about all your experiences working with businesses and your experience in your detox period, what other things are going to inform the next step for you?
Well, I need to work out what my new purpose is. I wonder if during the detox period, I'm not going to, it's not going to pop into my head. I probably need to get out the other side and start, doing other stuff gently, just to see what it might be. At the moment, I'm just having fun. I have plenty to look forward to when I get up in the morning.
Yeah.
I've got 3 different dogs I take for walks on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the morning. So you're always looking forward to that.
It's interesting, isn't it? There's a book that I love on this particular subject, and I think I might have mentioned it to you before. Certainly, if you're watching the channel quite a lot at the minute, you would have heard me talk about it quite a lot. Called "Design Your Life" by Bill Burnett.
Okay.
And he talks about this concept of rapid, low-cost experimentation. So just trying, and again, I really, interestingly, I really like the idea of not running into this and going, I need to try 30 things in the first month, because I think you could really easily and very quickly burn out. But his concept is often in this, whenever we make a change, we don't know what's going to work for us. So we've got to just try different stuff to see if it sticks.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And clearly for you, writing's going to be one of them.
Well, yeah, although you find pretty quickly that it's tough to make money as a debut novelist, really hard. So that's not going to, and I guess that means actually I'm not going to spend as much time as that as I might have done if it looked like it was going to be a big money making machine. It's hard work getting Amazon ads going and getting the reviews
you're never going to make you're never going to, I mean, apart from Richard Osman and J.K. Rowling, it's publishing's a difficult business, isn't it? How much of when you're thinking about what happens next, does money play a part? Because my perhaps naive assumption is you get to the point where you go, well, look, if I know I'm not going to run out, I've got a choice. And often some of the decisions you make, and again, you can tell me what your perspective on this is, Tim, because I'd be really interested. Yes, you want to be sort of rewarded for your time and expertise, but as you say, you're probably making decisions less about money in this phase because you want to add value in a different way. So where does money play a part in that conversation when you're thinking about the activities you do?
Well, for me, not very significant at all. I'm just making sure with the books that it's not costing me too much money, because it would be really easy to spend a shed load of money on marketing and PR and stuff, and actually not get any return for it whatsoever. Well, that's just the accidental accountant in me, presses the red button at that one and says, "Oh, hang on a minute, that's." So it's all right, as you say, it's all right to have low cost experimentation, but high cost experimentation, that's just crazy. Unless you really want to do something badly. I don't need to be a best-selling author that badly. I've found that I need to really break the bank to do it.
Yeah, 100%. And tell me about because you mentioned about ego before, and actually that ego being often holding us back to a life that we actually want to live. How could we potentially look at ego in a different way that stops us doing that?
I think that ego is really hard because it comes from inside someone. And I had no end of people who I could see the ego driving them. And sometimes you can't get through. Sometimes you just need to stand back and say, okay, I've given my advice. I need to let them learn the lessons themselves. I had some terrible stories over the years of people who got tied up with their own self-importance and wrecked things for the company.
There's a great book that I love called because I'm a bit of a fan of Stoicism and Stoic philosophy. And there's a great book by a guy called Ryan Holiday called Ego is the Enemy, and it talks about, from the Stoic perspective, hubris is the thing that often undoes all the hard work we put in. And it's really interesting. It's one of those things that, as you say, because it's internal, difficult to challenge. But you need to sort of be on your own journey of self-discovery.
I think you just need to be humble yourself.
It's the humility, isn't it?
Realize that the young generation can do as good a job as you did.
Yeah, yeah.
Which that's a tough message for some people to listen to and learn, because my experience is, you know, they've got different ideas and they're better equipped to deal with today's world than people in their mid-60s, I'm afraid.
Well, and we're going through that journey in our business at the minute, because I'm 47. I've got plenty of time to my what happens next moment. But if anybody asks me what's your greatest challenge at the minute, and the answer is replacing me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
so my answer to that was you need to find two replacements for you.
Interesting. Well, I'm trying to be humble. It's probably half a person, to be honest, Tim. I mean, I don't know if I'm that good. But I've seen individuals who turn around and go, well, look, there's nobody that could replace me, and therefore they just carry on doing what they're doing to their own detriment, right?
Yeah, they're fooling themselves.
Yeah, 100%. So, top tips: if you've got a business owner in front of you, based on your experience of working with business owners over the years and your own sort of experience and transition into your detox period, what are the top 3 to 5 things you'd recommend somebody does today to make sure that they're better prepared?
Number 1, make sure you plan ahead before the offer comes in. Number 2, if you are planning to go in the next and retire in the next 5 years, then get the business prepared and ready for that.
Yeah.
Number 3, think about the emotional side. What are you going to do the day afterwards? What are you going to do in the year afterwards?
Yeah.
That's the 3. Easy.
Love that. And I think we did a video on what happens next quite recently that talked about, think about your day, think about your week, think about your year, because you're going to have different perspectives on how you'd spend your ideal day, your ideal week, and your ideal year, and it might inform your choices that you make sort of in the next stage of your life. Tim, I've really enjoyed the conversation today, mate. Thank you for sharing your insights and being so open about your journey, because I think the interesting thing is, and we've had this a couple of times on What Happens Next interviews, even people who are pretty well prepared are still finding themselves in a transitional state.
Yep.
So
that's good. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
that's the best place to catch me. I think that's really good when people are jumping around doing different things.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So we'll put when we put this video out, we'll put your LinkedIn profile so that people can find you. But that's really good. Thank you so much for your time.